Welcome to day 271 of the 300 Movie Challenge. Today we watched the highest grossing film of December 2016, which was Rogue One.
Sit tight, everyone. This is gonna be a doozy.
I'm wondering if I should just let you guys go, or if I should go, or what. I don't know.
Well, I'm low-key devastated right now, so because that helps.
Maybe it's a good idea if you go first, Fallon.
Okay, so the general consensus from what I gather about this movie is that it's good. And I see a lot of people saying that this is their favorite of the Disney Star Wars movies, but they still say it's the original trilogy, that's the best, and, all that kind of stuff. But most people, I don't really know anyone who, hates this. There are some people who just think it's kind of alright, but again, most people think it's a good movie. I'm of a minority opinion that this is my favorite Star Wars movie. And here's the thing. I absolutely recognize problems. The first half of this movie is just kind of there. It really doesn't do that much with the characters. It's the whole first 30 minutes is actually kind of confusingly told, especially if you're not super familiar with what's going on. And there are some characters, mainly Saw Gerrera, who are basically worthless. And so I get that completely. Once they get to Scarif, though, it's just, I just get so engrossed in this. Every time, this is the sixth or something time I've seen this movie now. And every time, as soon as they get to Scarif, I'm so into this movie. And it's weird because every important character in this movie is completely brand new to this movie. And there's a good amount of them. So there isn't that much time spent to developing who they are and that kind of stuff. For example, Force Awakens, there were fewer characters. They had more time for, most of them, right?
Yeah.
So here you think, okay, well, if there's characters that aren't really developed, well, then I don't really care, right? But one of the advantages that I think this has is that since everyone is new, you have no idea what's going to happen to them.
Right.
That is true, yeah.
Right, so, if we saw, I don't know, if C-3PO and R2-D2 were, in the fight, somehow, it's well, they're gonna live, right? So, okay, fine. You don't know what's gonna happen to these guys. And it's also just a very different kind of battle from anything we've seen.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the battles, well, first of all, the battles usually focus on the Jedi involved in them, and there aren't any. But then also, it really focuses on all of these people as a force, both in terms of the battle in space and also on the ground. And it's also really interesting because you see all of the stuff that was, basically the vehicles and stuff from the original movies, but this is made in 2016. So you see kind of how they
it's basically re-rendered.
Yeah, and so for example, the Battle of Endor from Return of the Jedi, right? Extremely impressive battle, especially considering it was made in 1983. But because of those limitations, there are some limitations. For example, on the screen at the same time, you probably only see about a dozen ships at most.
Yeah.
But here you see 100 TIE fighters fly out of this thing and all this stuff, and it's just the spectacle of it is so good. And honestly, I think this is my favorite space battle in the franchise. Again, Battle of Endor is very, very close, and especially since it was made, 33 years ago. That
About, yeah.
So that you could argue that therefore that makes it better. So I understand that, but in terms of just pure visual spectacle, I think this is the most interesting. And they have this stuff especially this is what they do. Again, the thing that I always love so much is that they get that the Hammerhead ship to push into the Star Destroyer, and we're that's so unique, right? And they haven't done that before. So there's stuff like that, and then especially once Jin gets to the tower, okay, the top of the tower with the dish, right?
Yeah.
That to the end. So that's like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or something.
I think so, yeah.
Like, I get this gut feeling that, like, I'm just so emotionally involved in what's going on, and it's, like, so tense, and I'm just like, in, like, my gut, and, like, again, none of the other films have a moment that quite does that for me, and it's weird, because, again, like, you do not, like, get to really know these characters, so it's like, why? And I don't know, I really don't know what it is about this that, like, pushes me to that next level, and I will say this, the scene with Darth Vader at the end is the best scene in all of the movies. I will just flat out say that right now. Just because we've seen Darth Vader before, like, a lot, right?
Mm.
And he's, he's intimidating, he's he's badass, he's, threatening, but he was never terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
He's fucking terrifying in this, and he just destroys everybody. And it's like, again, it's like a minute-long scene, but it's just like, it's so intense, and the emotion and, like, the scale of what's going on, we have not seen that before. We haven't seen that sort of, like, just complete one-sided power against people like that. The only thing I can kind of think anywhere near close to that is, this is a terrible comparison because the emotion is way off. The whole, like, in Revenge of the Sith, where Anakin, kills the younglings, right? But, like, again, it doesn't work because of the emotions of that. But here it works so well, and it's like, and I think also the aspect that, like, they were so fucking close to failing, like, dozens of times, right? And so it puts this, like, it also, what I really like about this, is it puts the beginning of the first original movie into a new perspective.
Yeah, because you understand what the characters had to do with even prior to Leia getting that information and stuff.
Right, and I love how, like, basically the original movie starts like 10 minutes later.
Yep.
Right? It's so soon. And, like, I've heard people complain about it, where they're like, because in the original movie at the beginning, when Leia, Vader gets on the ship and Leia's like, he confronts her or whatever, she's like, you can't come here, this is a diplomatic mission to Alderaan or whatever. And so people are like, well, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Why the hell would she say that, like, if she was literally just at the fight and Vader...
She could have been lying.
Well, no, so that's the thing. So I like that, actually, because then basically she's like, yeah, this is a diplomatic mission. What the fuck you gonna do about it? You got no proof, son. And it's just like, it paints her as, like, kind of this, like, badass, and to, like, basically stick up to Vader. And it's like, because at that point, like, the Senate still existed, right? So he couldn't, like, just basically just slaughter her outright because, like, she is this, like, royal leader person, right? Mm-hmm. So basically she's just, like, taunting him with, like, yeah, this is a diplomatic mission. The fuck you gonna do about it? And he's just like, shit. So it's like, I like that. Like, I like that added thing to it. So there's that. What else? Oh, there's a lot of small references to things if you've, like, know other stuff about, like, some of the shows and other things like that. So every single main character in this movie is just in this movie, except for one.
Oh.
Now, unfortunately, this is the character that was the most poorly used, Saw Gerrera.
Oh.
Saw Gerrera was originally in the Clone Wars show.
Which one? The first one or the second one?
This 3D CGI one.
Okay.
He was in one of the arcs, and basically he was part of a group of resistance fighters on a planet fighting against the Confederacy, the droid army. And there's a whole arc it's a really good arc, where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka are basically, like, training this rebellion group to kind of fight on their own against this group, and you follow them, and he's one of the guys there. And in fact, his sister is actually the main leader of that. But anyway, and so that was like, because I was like, oh, okay, sweet. They could actually have, like, cool references with him, and maybe he brings up some stuff from the show, and they don't do any of that. So it's just like, oh, well, that's kind of lame. And, like, again, the stuff with him, like, he doesn't really feel it important, and, like, the thing, like, with, like, the pilot, but he has that, like, weird tentacle monster thing that, like, ruined his mind. But then they just were like, hey, you're the pilot, right? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm the pilot. And it's like, what? Like, what was the point of that, right?
Yeah,
so,
it's like, what was the whole point of that whole thing?
So again, I get the problems in this, right? So I'm not, I totally understand if that stuff, like, kind of takes you out of it and it lowers your opinion of it. Totally understand. But anyway, so there's that. Let's see what else. On the Yavin 4 base, so, okay, there was, again, the Clone Wars show. There's also Star Wars Rebels. Star Wars Rebels takes place from 5 years before the first movie to like about a year-ish before the first movie.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So basically,
Recent.
yeah. So again, shortly before this Rogue One, and so in the background of one of the scenes, you can see the droid Chopper that is in Rebels just kind of moving around in the background. And on one point, the loudspeaker calls for General Syndulla. That's one of the characters from Rebel show. The main Rebel show ship, the Ghost, can be seen flying around in the Scarif battle. The whole thing on Jeddah where they were saying that like the Empire was taking Kyber crystals.
Yeah.
So Kyber crystals are the crystals that the Jedi use to power their lightsaber. And this is established in, I don't know when it was originally established, but it's been a kind of expanded universe thing for a long time. And so, but one of the unfinished episodes of the Clone Wars that they released as like basically like really, really shoddy storyboard animations, but they released it officially, was about a plot where Anakin and Obi-Wan were tracking down the like a secret Confederacy mission of droids who were basically stealing a giant Kyber crystal. And and from that, they learned that if you give it a lot of energy, it produces an extremely powerful blast. So that is then the catalyst to the Empire learning, hey, you can use this to make really powerful weapons, hence harvesting them to create the Death Star laser.
Right. Oh, I see.
So again, there's a lot of stuff like this that like you don't really need to know to like understand the plot, but like there's a lot of like small things that really add to the experience if you really are involved with a lot of things.
It's little Easter eggs.
Yeah, and then my favorite one actually is those Hammerhead ships.
That was also from the show?
They're in one of the earlier episodes of Rebels. There is an entire episode dedicated to the crew basically procuring some specialized ships for the rebellion. Those are the Hammerhead ships. So, and actually I think they get them like from Leia basically through like a thing with that. It's been a while since I saw the episode, but I think that's what happens. So this is like this, and then again, this was set up in like 2015 or something. So this was set up like a while ago on the show. They're like, oh, the rebellion has these cool weird ships now. Okay, but what are they going to do with them? And we like never saw them again. This was the payoff.
Oh, I see.
So it was really cool to be like, oh shit, like that came into play, and that was how they're using them for now, and this is the use, and like, oh, it was a really cool use, and so I don't know. There's just a bunch of stuff like that that I really, really like. A fun little thing. You know how like, especially near the beginning when there was a bunch of different planets, and they kept like showing like the name of the planets in the corners.
Oh yeah.
One of the planets was an anagram of Obi-Wan.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, there's a planet Wobani, so it's Obi-Wan.
Oh.
So there's that. Again, there's a bunch of stuff that's all throughout this, and I really, really, really like it because it. And again, so there's that emotion aspect of the last part. There's all of those references. There's the fact that again they make this story that, to be honest, if you say the story itself, oh, how the rebels like get the Death Star plans, you're probably thinking like, okay, but like. Not like I would have been super interested to know that, right? It's not a story you necessarily want to know.
Right.
So it's clear that like the people who made this like had an idea, like a legitimate like movie idea, and they made that idea, and they made it work with I think what they had. For comparison, for example, with like Solo, like everyone kind of feels like that like Solo was just kind of made because like someone thought, hey, people want to see Han Solo, like. You know what I mean? It wasn't really like, we have a real idea for a movie. It was like, hey, this concept will sell, so let's do it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we think that, Solo... I mean, Solo was fine, but it wasn't, like, great. So, yeah. So, I don't know. I really like this movie. Again, it's my favorite Star Wars movie. I'm not exactly sure where I want to rank it, because... it's very different from a lot of other movies that I really like, and in terms of the movies that I do really like, it probably has the most things wrong with it. But I can't help what I feel about it, so, yeah, that's my thing. I'm legitimately curious just how many people actually think Rogue One is their favorite Star Wars movie, because it's probably a very small number. It seems to me that the vast majority say Empire Strikes Back, which I've always kind of thought was a bit weird. I've honestly never thought Empire was my favorite, but anyway, whatever. You guys have anything else to add?
I really liked all of the characters, actually.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I guess Jin is very obvious as to why I connected with her.
Mm.
Because of the whole father aspect, and then he dies, which is oh man, I watched like a sad episode of a different show today, and I was already like kind of sad, but now I'm like low-key devastated. So that's great. I don't know, like I found all of the characters, like the main, I guess, like what, 5, 6 if you count the robot.
Yeah.
6, yeah.
Like 6, yeah. I found the main 6 characters to be very, I don't know, just I liked all of them because
Yeah,
like,
there's not like a lot
Yeah.
with them, but they're likable,
Yeah.
and you want to, see them do stuff, and yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
also see them survive.
Yep.
oh my god, like when they started to actually like die, like when the droid died, I was like, oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're not gonna make it out of this mission, are they? And then like the blind guy died, and
Mhm.
then like
His
his friend died.
Yeah.
That was so sad. I was like,
The fighter died. Like
yeah,
the cargo pilot guy.
Yep.
And then you see the explosion.
Mm-hmm.
Jin and what's his name, Cassian. They walk towards the explosion and they die on the beach.
Mm-hmm. Like it's kind of cliche, but like it works. So fuck it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if they want to enjoy the beach, let them enjoy the beach.
They want
I mean, if I was gonna have my final moments, I would want to be on a nice beach.
yeah.
Actually, well, that also adds to it because, like, Scarif, as like you think of, like a place to have a gritty battle. You don't think like a tropical island, right?
Yeah.
So that also helps with like this unique flair to it.
Oh yeah, another thing too is, I actually kind of like the villain too, the guy with the cape.
Krennic, yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Because he's that kind of archetype where like he's like secretly super insecure,
Yeah.
right? Because he's always like, oh, I'm so cool, I'm so badass, but then something doesn't go his way, and he's like, what the fuck? And he gets like actually like pissed, right? And it's like it's yeah, you kind of feel bad for him, even though he's like a totally terrible person, because it's like, aw, why can't they, Tarkin just took away his Death Star from him? That's so sad. You know what I mean? But like he's just a dick though, so it's like, yeah, I totally agree with that as well.
It also like plays into when you later think about like what happens in the first Star Wars movie and everything, and when that guy dies, you're just like, ha! Even more, ha!
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm glad they kind of color-coded them because otherwise they're like two older like men, so they look kind of similar, and I was kind of worried at first.
Well, actually,
but then
go ahead.
since they wore different colors, it helped at least me because I can't keep names straight sometimes, like
Yeah,
with sci-fi. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, the guy with the white cape and the guy with the black suit who's like the right-hand man.
Mhm.
They're
And the
like,
Darth Vader's obviously.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So that
Oh,
guy.
wait, before.
Mhm.
Alright, you're talking about the villain too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna talk about Tarkin, the other guy.
Oh, I
The
was gonna,
black-clad guy.
Yeah. But okay. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say one last thing about what was his name? Karkin?
Krennic.
Krennic? The guy with the white cape.
Yeah.
The interesting thing I also found is that last scene where he's staring up at the sky and he sees the Death Star, and you know what's going through his mind at that point, and I couldn't help but remember, like, I guess a little factoid, which is that the guy who invented the guillotine invented it because, I forget who exactly, whether it was the king or the queen, but one of them basically was like, they wanted a more, like, I guess,
Effective.
direct and swift way of, like, basically executing people.
Mm-hmm.
So he invented the guillotine, but in the end, he actually ended up getting, like, killed by the guillotine, the very thing that he invented.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, so it's like that kind of irony.
yeah, I couldn't help but think of that story when I saw that scene and everything. So I was like, oh, in the end, he actually died by the very thing that he sought to create and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it also it shows that whole thing. It does actually show an added layer of like ruthlessness of the Empire, where it's like, okay, sure, we've seen them like destroy Alderaan and like all this stuff that's like really bad, but this is like it's like, yeah, fuck it, blow up our own base, like kill all of our own men, right? Like,
yeah,
damn, like you know what I mean? It's a new kind of layer to this stuff.
Not only that, but this is where all their information was stored up until this point too.
Yeah.
Well, at least one of the places. Yeah, we don't know if this is the only one, but yeah. Yeah, so okay, so Tarkin, I wonder if you noticed this. He's CGI.
Oh, I was wondering. I was like, wow, they got, the original actor is here and everything, and he
Nope.
looks exactly the same.
Nope.
He's
That-
definitely not alive anymore.
Nope,
No.
that actor is dead. So he's entirely CGI, and then Leia at the very end is entirely CGI.
Mm,
So
Oh, that hurts.
yeah, I've seen people say that like that like they could tell and it was distracting. Honestly, like I get if you know when you're looking at it, you can tell, but like it's not. I don't think it's especially. Let me put it this way: we just recently saw Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, so I am not going to complain about the effects.
Like, I just low-key thought that they found, like, a family member and was like, okay, I'm gonna make you up as best as I can.
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I.
Stand there and try your best to deliver these lines, or we'll get a voice actor, you can dub the lines.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Well, actually, okay, that reminded me of something else.
It was like how in like was it Fast 7? Yeah, I think it was Fast 7, where they got like his brother to like act out some of the parts.
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that reminded me of something. So, now what I don't know for sure is there are some like returning actors. So, I forgot the actor's name, but the guy Bail Organa who plays Leia's adoptive father, that's the same guy from like the prequels.
Oh.
And again, you realize he mentioned his Jedi friend that went into exile, right? So that's Obi-Wan.
Oh.
So that's the whole thing about he's sending Leia to give the message for Obi-Wan, you're our only hope thing, right? That's that.
Yeah.
The red-haired woman in the rebellion who was wearing like the white thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she was she was in Revenge of the Sith in a deleted scene. So that actress who was there for that deleted scene was her in this, and then she was originally, I think, in Return of the Jedi as a different actress, because who's too old now for that. But same idea. Now, something that's interesting is that the pilots of the different ships in the Rebel fleet, I know for that, like, I believe it's Red Leader or Gold Leader of them. Maybe it's both of them.
Yeah, red leader,
Yeah.
gold leader.
Their
blue.
voices are definitely the same, or at least very, very close to the actual red and gold leaders from the original movie. So,
Oh.
and I'm pretty sure they look the same. So I'm like, I don't think they're CGI. So maybe they just did find people who looked very, very similar, because they had to have like the helmets on and stuff, so you can kind of hide
So
that
that
stuff.
helps.
But something I forgot to mention. So one of the guys who dies in their ships was, they specifically point out that the person who died was Red 5.
Okay.
In the original movie, when Luke goes to, with the fleet to attack the Death Star, his sign, his whatever the term is Red 5.
Oh.
So basically, that
he
was the
really
guy
is.
who Luke took his spot, basically.
Oh.
So again, there's a lot of really small stuff like this that's so cool. So it's just, but yeah, and then okay, I don't like love any of the characters, but I do like them for whatever. But the standout character for me is K2SO.
Yeah, I liked the robot.
because
He
he's
kind of reminds me of if you like took C-3PO and R2-D2
yes,
and like you
yes,
smash them
yes,
together.
exactly. Because
He
he's got
has the snark of
Yeah.
R2-D2.
but with the voice and the mannerisms of C-3PO. Yeah, I exactly. And so I always like, and there's the whole thing when he's first introduced with like, congratulations, you're being rescued or whatever, right? That whole
Yeah.
thing, like that's been memed a lot. So like one of the things is they replace him as like an image of the United States, and then Jin on the ground is like the Middle East.
No.
So it's like, you're being rescued, please do not resist, right? So that's a thing that I've seen a lot.
I like the scene where Jin shoots like one of the robots and then he appears and then right after and he's
Mhm.
like, "Did you know that wasn't me?"
Yeah. Yeah, so he's got a lot of great lines. There's actually a decent amount of like funny moments kind of throughout.
Yeah.
I also really like the scene where they're putting like the sacks over people's heads and they do so for like the blind guy too,
Oh, yeah.
and he's like, "I'm blind."
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's really a point to this.
He also had a lot of snark in him.
Yeah, so there's stuff like that, and again, it's stuff that like it still feels like it fits, even though there's a lot of like really
Yeah.
tense stuff in it too. So, yeah,
This was definitely like a passion project.
Yeah.
You can definitely
Yeah.
tell by how it's like delivered, how the actors like carried out their parts. And I guess the thing is, it's like, was this adapted from any original
No.
material?
nope,
No.
this is its
Wow.
own thing. Yep,
So this is 100% a passion project.
yep.
Wow.
So, yeah, and again, I understand if maybe you don't like love it like a lot, because again, I do recognize completely there's some problems with the early stuff in the movie and the pacing at the beginning and that kind of stuff. But just the stuff that's good to me just stands out so much, and I just every time I see it, I think like, this is gonna be the time that I'm not like as into it as before, and it's always nope, I'm still into it just as much. So. Yeah.
It's your baby.
Yeah, again, I'm still really have to think about where I want to rank this compared to other stuff, but yeah, I like this a lot.
Oh, one thing I was kind of happy that they didn't do was they didn't have Jin and what's his name?
Cassian?
Cassian kiss. I was very happy they didn't do
Yeah.
that.
I think they just had like a very strong sense of camaraderie, and like they're just like, okay, you're the last person who I'm gonna see while I'm alive, so let's just have a nice warm hug
Mhm.
and go out with like no coldness in our lives, and
Yeah.
we'll join whoever.
Yeah, and
Yep.
actually,
On a beach.
yeah, and actually, I don't know where this is in the process exactly, but I know for sure confirmed that they are making a show on Cassian and K2SO like before this movie.
Oh,
Aww.
I'm not sure if it's going to be live action or not, but yeah, and again, I don't know what the process is on that in terms of how far along they are. So, but I know that's a thing. So, and I'm not 100% sure I feel about that, because I feel like since we now know how they end, like this feels like that might kind of ruin a bit of the tension. But again, I'll have to see what they do with it. So,
it might also be like weird to not have the other 4 people with them.
yeah, well, maybe I'm thinking, because I realize this now, is that you know how before they leave Yavin 4, he has this like crew with him, right? And we don't know any of them at all, right? So
Right.
maybe we'll learn about those guys instead. I don't know, right? So, yeah, but that's
Wait,
do with that.
actually, there was one thing I wanted to ask.
Mhm.
So, when they first like got to the dude's like secret hideout thing in the rocks and stuff,
hmm
it kind of did like a scanning shot, and you saw some people like looking at a dancer and stuff. Was that the dancer that like got eaten by the giant alien
Oh,
thing?
it was like a hologram of a
Yeah.
Twilight dancer. Yeah, I don't know if that's supposed to be the same person. Again, part of the thing is that like that species is kind of like, you know, the they fulfill the stereotypical female entertainment role, basically, of the universe. So that's kind
okay.
of like the thing that they do. a lot of the time. So who knows if that's? I don't necessarily think that's supposed to be the same person. It's just that's kind of a fixture of like So yeah, that's the dancer that the guys like in terms of just alien species stereotypes.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, again, I'm simplifying, of course, but you can get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. Let's see. Is there anything else I specifically want to mention? Because I really don't want to forget anything. Can't think of anything now, but... one thing I do like, though, is that... Because this was... You just think about it. This was a risk, kind of, at the time. Right? Because, Force Awakens was a safe movie to make. Right?
Yeah. Right, because it's a sequel.
It's a sequel to the main thing, and they repeat a lot of the plot stuff in terms of, look, this is a familiar story, we know what we're doing, all this kind of stuff, so it was a very safe movie. This was a very kind of risky movie, completely new characters, a kind of weird story that doesn't necessarily have a hook to it immediately, and, it's its own thing, and it was really successful in that end. So it's interesting because, like, it shows, like, oh, this is something that they can do going forward. And then Solo fucked it up, so thank you.
I guess that's also kind of why I like it too. It's like fresh because there's no main Jedi. It's like just regular rebels.
Yeah.
And
like, the only Jedi in this movie you could argue is Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only lightsaber you see.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty neat. Like just not. They didn't rely on the Jedi because, Star Wars leans so much on the whole, like, Jedi thing, even though in The Force Awakens, like, you don't really see Rey pick up the lightsaber and use it until, like, later, but you still have Kylo Ren fucking shit up with his. So that's still leaning into the whole Jedi thing, but here, you just have Darth Vader, and he is iconic. He kind of stands on his own, but I guess in a way it also, like, shows how, like, even the people who don't have the Force in the same way, they can still do something significant.
Yeah.
Because in the other movies, they kind of felt more disarmed. Like, Han Solo isn't a Jedi. He gets, like, kidnapped. He gets put into a Formica thing. Leia gets, like, enslaved by the whatever his name was, the slug guy.
Right.
So, and then it's like, okay, Luke is here to save the day with his big shiny sword.
Yeah.
But here you have, like, just some girl who was just the daughter of the inventor guy, and then, like, two pilots, a blind dude who has the Force, but in a different way, and then his mercenary friend.
Yeah.
And then a robot with a lot of attitude, and they save the day.
And a robot with attitude. Yeah. And even, like, the shows, like, for example, I really like the Clone Wars show, but who's the main focus? Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka, right?
Yeah.
They're Jedi. It does focus on the clones a lot, and a lot of those episodes are very good, but still. Rebels has its own kind of ensemble cast of 6 characters, and one of them is a Jedi, and another one is kind of sort of being trained to be one kind of ish. A little bit odd in terms of that, but I won't go into it. There is another show that's actually, I think it's airing right now, if not it's maybe like a little bit of a break, that's Star Wars Resistance, which I'm honestly not sure exactly what it is. I know it's supposed to take place between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, but I'm not exactly sure where in that 30-year gap it is. And as far as I know, that's just based off the main characters are like a team of, like, pilots, basically. But, so that might be kind of similar. I don't know. I haven't seen it. And I don't really know what people think about it. All I know is that when it was first revealed, there was a backlash because of the art style, because it looks like kind of like anime-ish, but, like, not as good. So, but again, honestly, the visual design of a show is, like, kind of one of the lesser important things about a show. So I don't know how, like, if the characters and stories are good. I have no idea. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on that. So maybe that does that kind of thing, and I would, again, assume, like, the Cassian show thing that they're planning would kind of do that. It does actually remind me, there are plans for, you know, future stuff, right? Not just like, of course, there's The Last Jedi that came out after this, and there's, you know, Episode 9 coming out later this year, but there's stuff beyond that. And one of the plans they have said is a trilogy that's completely new.
Oh.
And there's speculation as to, like, when that is, right? And so actually, one of my original ideas was basically what ended up being Star Wars Resistance in terms of, like, random group of people doing stuff between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. So that kind of took that slot, which, you know, okay, fine. Another idea that a lot of people have is basically an Old Republic trilogy. And so the Old Republic was, like, again, like a extended universe kind of thing that was supposed to be, like, thousands of years before all of these movies. And there's, like, video games and stuff based on that, and so it's something that a lot of people really like. And so a lot of people really want that to kind of be adapted as movies. But since they've kind of said that this is a new thing, I have a feeling that they won't do that, because, again, it's, you know, not new if you're adapting that stuff, even though it's technically not canon anymore. But my idea for that, as something that would be brand new, would be, like, even earlier and get into just, like the first Jedi. Like, that whole idea of, like, kind of starting that and, like, you know, having maybe, like, barely any space travel even around, right? So, like, super early technology of just starting to kind of figure this stuff out. You would have characters that are completely removed from any sort of lineage of anybody, right? There would be no connection with anybody, and it would just be, you know, have its own kind of story in that sense. And that is something that, especially in terms of the new canon, there's absolutely nothing on that's been established. There were some things in the old stuff that was kind of in there, but again, not a lot. So it would be pretty new as to do something, and it would be something we'd never seen before. So that's kind of my idea, something like completely brand new to do. But I don't know. Anyway, is there anything else about this movie to talk about, or before we talk about 2016 quickly, because I know it's very late and we need to go to bed?
I think we wrapped it up nicely.
I think so too.
Okay, well then let's wrap up 2016 nicely.
Well, I mean, the end was good.
Well, okay.
The very end was good.
Yeah, okay, ignoring this movie, basically the first half of the year was good and the second half was not.
Yeah.
The second half... Okay, so first there was Kung Fu Panda 3.
Best January
trilogies.
movie. The best January movie that actually came out in January.
Yeah, I know, right?
And Deadpool was fine for what it was.
Yeah.
So, you know, just depending on how you feel about that.
Utopias, right?
Yep, Zootopia. I would say, to me, again, I think Rogue One is my favorite of what's here, but I would say Zootopia is a fairly close second.
Yeah.
So, and then Jungle Book was fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not really much else.
In terms of Disney adaptions and live action stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so it was fine. Civil War was also pretty good.
Kind of a downer, though.
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. So, that, which again, I think that was what I said was, like, the best thing about it, that they didn't try to be like, oh, and all of a sudden we're all happy now. And it's like, no,
Slap
everything...
a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, they didn't do that. So I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm actually curious to see where they go from this. And I guess we will find out at some point. Excuse me. Then Finding Dory, also pretty good.
Yep.
The last of the first half.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And then we got Secret Life of Pets. What even happened in that movie? I don't remember.
Dancing
Toy Story.
Dancing what?
Beanies.
Oh, fuck! I totally forgot about that.
I forgot about that too.
Oh my God.
It basically followed the plot of Star Wars.
Wait, do you mean Toy Story?
No, what's this? Yeah, wait, what?
I know you said Toy Story before.
It was Toy Story. Are you okay?
What? No, remember, because you said that the plot basically followed... It stole its plot from Toy Story?
Yeah, you said Star Wars.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sleepy.
That's okay.
Okay.
Let's just get back to Rogue One. Rogue One was good.
Yeah, okay, because then we had Suicide Squad, which... Yeah. This Paragon's House for Peculiar Children, which... Also, yeah. The Accountant, which existed. and then Fantastic Beasts, which
It's kind of a mess.
was a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of these 5, right? Secret Life of Pets to Fantastic Beasts, Fantastic Beasts is the best one, but
Yeah.
it's not exactly good. So
No.
At least we didn't think so.
yeah, I'm trying to think of like how I would rank this year overall, because like honestly, okay, Secret Life of Pets is pretty bad, Suicide Squad is pretty bad, but like there was nothing like atrociously bad. Like, you know,
So it's kind of like middle of the road.
there's nothing like Minions level, right?
Yeah.
So and again, the first half was legitimately pretty dang good, and you know, I like Rogue One a lot. So I'm thinking probably if I were to average this out, it would be above average, but I'm not 100% sure how
I mean,
much.
7 out of 12 is pretty good.
Yeah, 7
Yeah.
out of 12 is good, and again, the other 5 range from to bad, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like, you know, 2003 where it was all like shit. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so
think for me personally, it would be 6 and 6 because Deadpool is that exact. I acknowledge
oh, that's fair.
what
Okay.
it did, but
Yeah.
not to my taste personally.
Yeah,
but-
that's fair. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe like around like 1/3 mark in terms of like if I was to list the years in a row, it'd be like 1/3 from the top. I'm thinking maybe like that. I don't know. But yeah, overall decent year. Next year.
We're gonna start off kind of weird.
There's next. Okay. Yeah. So the January movie is another one that like I think actually the January movie is the last movie that I had never heard of before looking at all this stuff, and apparently after you know we started doing this, I've heard a few things about it.
Okay.
It's not exactly good, but I don't know to what degree, if it's like, you know, stupidly bad or just lame bad. Or if it's just kind of meh, like I don't know. All I know is what kind of movie it is and who stars in it. So,
And the movie after that.
we are going to die.
We're gonna have more inappropriate fish, so.
Oh fuck! I
look forward to
forgot. I
that.
even
Yeah,
forgot
what are
about
we gonna
that.
do with that?
God damn it. Okay, well, so there's that. And then
Very controversial movie.
yeah, we'll get
So we're
to.
gonna start off pretty strong.
Yeah, we're gonna get, and then we have that, which you know, whatever. So the first 4 movies are at best mixed,
Yeah.
at worst mind destroying. But after that, well, okay, this is bad. But besides that, we have a pretty good stuff after that, though. Like,
Yeah.
this I've heard is really good. This I've heard is really good. I've heard this is really good. This is really good. This is really good. This is really good. And then there's that at the end, which we'll get to that. That one.
controversy.
Yeah, but so this, I don't know. Like, I feel like this could be overall, despite the shit at the that we'll get to. This might even be like overall like a pretty good year, despite that horrible one there. But we'll see.
Okay. Whether or not it beats this year, we'll find out. But until next time, I evidently need sleep for mixing a
Did you
Star Wars
confuse Toy
sentence.
Story with Star Wars?
That's okay. We all make that mistake.
Toy Wars.
Toy Wars.
Is that what I said?
No, you just said Star Wars.
No, you said
No,
Star Wars.
okay, so,
But
okay.
Toy Wars.
I'm not completely.
Toy
okay.
Wars would be pretty epic, though. Not gonna lie.
Just have, like, in the middle of the Battle of Scarif, just Buzz Lightyear's just flying around. But, like, at the same, like, tiny size he is, so he's just flying in really tiny around, like, all the giant ships.
Oh my god.
Feeding so
No, the best thing would have been, you know how in the beginning one of the droids picked up like a toy and it was like one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
clones and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine if it was either Buzz Lightyear or what's his name? What's the villain's name?
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh! Yeah.
I know they wouldn't have done that because that would completely like
Disney
wreck
crossover.
everything. But
Plot twist: Star Wars is actually a Pixar movie. No, wait. I have the dumbest thought. So the very end of this movie, you know, the whole thing with Darth Vader, it's like super, you know, insane. Like, so, you know, you hear the breathing, you see the lightsaber turn on, and it's fucking like Russell from Up with the lightsaber.
Or like he boards the ship
with
and it's
Wally
white
like
aliens.
tagging behind him.
Oh my god.
So instead of K2SO, it's Wally.
Yes.
But he has K2SO's voice and mannerisms.
Wally unhinged.
Oh my god. The gritty, the live action reboot of Wally.
Alright, guys.
We need
Yeah. We need to prepare ourselves for the inevitable destruction coming up soon.
Ooh.
Okay, bye.